Make it less safe. Let don't discriminate any race. Make it less safe. Get it out of my face. Make it less safe. Get it out of my space. Make it less safe. Get it out of my face. Make it less safe. Get it out of my space. Pero qué es lo que pasa con plomo en toda su casa. Sabes que es muy peligroso, so haga su casa seguro. Cause it will poison all los niños if they try too much. Under from lead paint, cause pain ain't just blood, so make it less safe. You know it's no good. No good. Para mis hijos, let's make it less safe. Y para mis hijas, let's make it less safe. And the rest of the neighborhood, let's make it less safe. So let's make it less safe. Come on. And if the landlord stalls, don't shout. Just call 311 and ask for HPD. And they'll send some help out. So let's make it less safe.
This is Julius, my son. He's 3 months, and right now he's at that point that he puts everything in his mouth.
This is my oldest one, and when they crawl around, they get the dust on their hands. And children naturally are going to put their hands in their mouths before they do anything else.
Lead hazards are especially dangerous for young children. Lead can harm a child's health, learning ability, and behavior. Dust from lead paint is the most common cause of childhood lead poisoning. New York City banned lead paint for residential use in 1960. Even so, older buildings may still have lead paint on walls, windows, doors, and other surfaces. Lead paint chips and dust can spread around the home if paint is peeling or home repairs are done unsafely. Young children can then swallow lead dust when they put their hands and toys in their mouths.
People don't realize that it's normal for kids to put things in their mouths. That's how a child explores the world. At those ages, you know, of 1 and 2 and 3, that's how they learn about the world.
My daughter, we took her for a regular checkup at the doctor. They took a blood test, routine blood test, and then all of a sudden we got a phone call. Look, we found elevated lead in the blood.
Yo pensaba que era normal que ella, así como estaba todavía pequeñita, no comía, pero no, eso les queda porque ella ahora tiene 2 años que cumplió, pero ella sigue sin comer lo normal. El apetito de ella es poco.
Hyperactivity, learning problems, speech delay. You can also have stomach aches, nausea, vomiting, but it's really, a lot of it is behavioral, developmental, and then sometimes you don't really see the symptoms at all.
I'm taking them to the doctor to have a lead test done on them to find out if they've been exposed to this and the dangers or the side effects, whatever happens, so I can get them treatment.
Childhood lead poisoning can adversely affect the areas of the brain associated with learning and processing new information. These effects can impede your child's performance in school and can lead to further complications as he or she matures.
And then you have a child who's lead poisoned, who's not going to live as productive a life as they would have otherwise.
Before a child registers for school, they are required to have certain physical exams. And if a doctor finds that a child has an elevated blood level, they then notify the State Department of Health, who then notifies the local authority, which in New York City would be the New York City Department of Health.
And once you start learning about it and you learn how easily it could be prevented, if only you had known, that the peeling paint on the wall or the peeling paint on the door was dangerous, or my child shouldn't be, picking at the paint on the windowsill and things like that, that people don't really think about as being dangerous things.
Local Law 1 of 2004 applies to buildings and apartments with children that reside there who are under 6 years of age, which were erected prior to 1960 and between 1960 and 1978, where the owner has knowledge of lead-based paint hazards.
This law was enacted to prevent lead poisoning in children and reduce lead hazards in your home. If your building was built before 1960, you can assume that lead paint is present. If you don't know how old your building is, you can ask your landlord or your older neighbors.
If you have a child under age 6 in the apartment, and the apartment is an old apartment, and there's peeling paint, then you, as a tenant, have the right to notify the landlord that there is peeling paint, and the landlord, under the law, must comply and repair the peeling paint.
Under Local Law 1, the landlord is responsible for repairing lead hazards and the underlying cause of the hazards, such as a water leak, to prevent children from being exposed to lead. If your building was built before 1960, has 3 or more apartments, and you have a child under 6 years of age, then the law applies. Your landlord must make your apartment lead safe before you move in. If you are already living in an old apartment, the landlord must send you a notice every year in January asking if a child under 6 years of age lives in your apartment. It is your responsibility to respond. If you don't, then it's the landlord's responsibility to inspect your home to determine if a child under the age of 6 is present. If you do not provide your landlord access to inspect your home, your landlord is required to inform the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene.
The original paint underneath, the new paint, ever since we banned lead paint, is the most dangerous paint.
Lead hazards are found on walls, on floors, on window sills, on friction surfaces, windows, doors, on chewable surfaces, meaning that surfaces that protrude, like a windowsill or a step or a stair railing.
Friction surfaces is a surface that rubs against another surface. A door that's improperly installed is falling off its hinge. When you close it, it hits. It rubs against the surface of the jamb or the casing.
This cabinet has been up here probably since the building was built. There's a lot of friction surfaces that are created due to the opening and closing of these doors.
Impact surfaces are those surfaces such as baseboards and trim that can be damaged as a result of constant impact.
These are common places where you can find lead dust usually. When the cleanup is being done by tenants, they'll mop everywhere, they'll miss the corner spots. This creates a little bit of dust back here because of the binding surface.
Windowsills are considered a chewable surface. That means it is a surface where a child is learning to walk, usually goes to that area because he's intrigued by it.
It's a protruding surface, and as a result of this, kids are usually more inclined to run up to these windowsills and grab it with their nails or put their teeth marks on it.
We have a door that has to be changed or repainted. It has to be sprayed down. You have peeling paint. You have the risers with the paint chips.
As you can see, you could actually get a little bit of dust from these shelves in this cabinet. And, this is a hazard.
Right now we are in a hazard condition. We're looking here for water leaks, uncaped plaster, and a lot of debris from the water.
The law covers common areas. If there's any type of peeling paint or deteriorating lead-based paint hazards in the common areas such as the hallway, the stairwell, the lobby, the owner is responsible under the law for repairing those lead-based paint hazards. You should always be aware of any signs of dust and debris or damage, particularly to the windows, the floors, and the doors, which are potential sources of danger for lead dust for children. If you see any lead hazards in your home and you have a child under the age of 6, you should call your landlord to report the hazard. If your landlord does not repair the hazard in a timely fashion, then call 311 to report the problem.
If you call 311, make sure that you tell them everything that is going on in your apartment. Do not hold out on anything. I told the 311 operator that I needed the Department of Housing, the complaints department, because I wanted to file a complaint against my landlord for conditions in my apartment that were rendering my apartment pretty much in disrepair.
Most landlords are concerned about lead paint hazards and will take action to make your home lead safe when they are made aware of the problem.
We informed those tenants, we're having a tenants meeting here in the building, that we're going to protect them.
It's important to schedule a time for your landlord to come into your apartment and address any lead hazards. If your landlord does not act in a timely manner to repair the hazard, you can call 311 to report it. After you call 311, HPD will send lead inspectors to your home to test for the presence of lead paint. It is the inspector's responsibility to check the apartment for any other housing maintenance code violations.
The day is young, the day is young.
The inspectors use a lead detection device called a XRF machine to test painted surfaces for the presence of lead. The results from the testing are entered into a portable computer, which will later transfer the information to HPD. If the test results are positive for lead paint, then the tenant is informed that a lead violation has been issued.
By law, we have to conduct a surface-by-surface inspection of all components in the apartment. That's why we have to go room by room by room and check everything.
Cuando hicieron la última impresión.
Okay.
Ahí no le pusieron máquina.
Okay. Last shot, 32 on the ceiling. A lot of these old tenements, it's mostly the old plasterboard.
Shot number 33.
That has lead. Additional reading.
The door frames, the window frames.
42.
Generally, those are the spots where you're going to find it. And even when you have where the landlords have complied and done some work in the apartment, where they've put sheetrock in, generally they don't take the door frames and window frames into consideration. 38. So generally we find the lead that is still there, present, those components. When the tenant doesn't give us access, that means the tenant doesn't have the information. They don't know whether they do have lead in their apartment or not.
If there's peeling lead paint in your apartment, your landlord will receive a violation notice and will have 21 days to repair any lead hazards and their underlying causes. If your landlord has not completed the work within 21 days, HPD will send a repair team unless your landlord files for a postponement.
Yes, good morning. This is Mr. Cartagena from HPD, the lead unit. I'm calling in regards to the lead violations you have in your apartment.
This is the BEH lead unit for HPD. The type of work we do is lead abatement work. When the code enforcement goes out and they find violations in apartments throughout the city that refer to lead, they are dispatch violations to our office for us to go out and do the work if the landlord fails to do the work.
Then we'll have our people there about 9:30. Okay, thank you very much. Bye-bye.
It's very important that we gain access. The faster that we gain access to the apartment, the quicker we could eliminate the lead problem. So we try to convince the tenant that it's at their best interest that we do the work quickly.
Let's go to the office.
Apparently nobody's home.
Okay, come in.
Even though we make appointments, sometimes the tenants, they change their mind or they forgot they had an appointment.
It benefits the tenants because they have children that are here every day, and the lead hazards that are here affect their children most directly.
We then schedule our workers to go in and do the work.
If the job is 2 square feet to 100 square feet, then the workers have to be trained in lead-safe work practices.
100 square feet or replacing 2 or more windows, the individual has to hire an EPA firm. That's a firm that's been certified by EPA to be involved in lead abatement activities. At the bare minimum, those individuals that are working for that firm have to be trained in lead-safe work practices.
We see lots of kids who come in, and that's when they get poisoned, is during renovations that are done incorrectly.
All contractors that are involved in disturbing paint need to be trained. When disturbing in excess of 2 square feet in a multiple dwelling building where kids under the age of 6 reside, they need to be trained in lead-safe work practices.
Because they teach you more precautions that you wouldn't learn on a regular construction site as far as the contamination of lead, how to protect yourself and the workers.
People need to do their job properly and need to take it very seriously when you're dealing with old paint in these old buildings and old homes.
Putting up signs, keep the workers aware, and just to remember a warning for them.
All the rooms are covered and sealed to protect any contamination on the floor and furniture, and to also protect the public or any of our lead abatement workers.
You always poly the floor, which means covering the floors with poly.
So what we do is use a 6mm plastic and cover the furnitures. Tape it to the floor.
We have 3 layers to keep from any wind from opening the door for the dust to prevent and contaminating any public areas. The same way like the last layer, sometimes either last or middle layer, to keep from any dust escaping from under the door. It's important to work wet with spray bottles and spraying while you scrape because it keeps the dust and it keeps it from spreading.
You have to wet mop the floors, you have to use a HEPA vacuum. The cleanup process is very important here.
It's important that the contractor actually missed the 6mm polyplastic that was hopefully trapping the dust from the paint chips, and fold it in like an envelope, duct tape it, and actually put it in a 6mm polyplastic bag. And then do what we call a gooseneck. You twist the bag, you bend the twist, and you duct tape the bend. And then you properly dispose of it.
The landlord is responsible for relocating the tenant.
The tenants all were willing to help me reduce the hazards, and they signed relocation agreements, and we found alternate apartments for them during the work.
If your child has been diagnosed with lead poisoning or work is being done in your home under the Commissioner's order to abate issued by the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene, you may be relocated temporarily to a lead-safe house.
Me llamaron de aquí a la casa para venir yo para acá porque tenía que salir de ese apartamento porque tenía mucho plomo.
A dust wipe clearance test must be performed after repair work and cleanup have been completed to ensure that the lead hazards have been made lead safe.
The owner in all instances has to hire a third-party individual that's separate and apart from the owner and from the tenant.
When your landlord certifies that the work is completed, HPD will re-inspect your home.
This booklet is yours to keep. Everybody should have a booklet.
HPD offers free lead education classes to the community for tenants, owners, housing professionals, and contractors.
You can see an example of deteriorated paint.
Well, as a tenant, I wanted to learn some of the laws, some of the guidelines, about lead paint. And also as a female and as a Latina, I wanted to gain this knowledge for empowerment.
What are the 3 areas most dangerous for children?
Windows, doors.
The classes cover a variety of subjects including current laws and regulations, tenant and owner responsibilities, instruction, and visual assessment and contractor certification.
I'm also a tenant as well as a housing specialist. It's good to be able to spot, possible lead paint in my apartment.
The first step in conducting a visual assessment is to identify deteriorated paint.
You get classes like this so that you can now almost avoid the mistakes of the past. I thank God for classes like this. This class was really, to me, really empowering because now I know, stay on top of the problem. I know now what to do because I got all the information. If I don't have anything, I at least know where to go to get the information to fix whatever problems I need to fix or address.
There's a pamphlet that we do hand out on lease renewal, and also any information we receive, we try to pass on to the tenants. I speak to them directly about it.
Usually we give these blue pamphlets to the tenant after end of our inspection. It's lots of information like how they affect children, how they can protect children from getting lead, and once they have lead in their apartment, what the landlord's supposed to do.
The pamphlet is also available in English and in Spanish.
Lead can really affect you, can affect children as well as adults. It's something that people need to know. As tenants, we always get these, these pamphlets talking about the dangers of lead poisoning, but I don't think we really understand how really important it really is, how it can really affect your body.
Prevention is the thing in terms of finding out if there's peeling paint in your apartment and finding out if it's lead paint or not, and just stopping any exposure to lead paint. That's the most important thing.
There were certain things that I, didn't like, and I didn't feel comfortable, and I knew that there was old paint, and I know that old paint, and knowing that this is an old building, there's got to be lead.
Lead paint is often found below many layers of perfectly safe modern paint, but when any surface has been damaged for any reason, the lead paint line underneath has a chance to get out and contaminate your home. So look for peeling paint, water damage, deteriorating plaster or sheetrock, any surface that's soft, flaky, dusty, or moldy. Remind your doctor to test your child for lead poisoning. Under New York State law, doctors are required to test blood lead levels of children ages 1 and 2.
It's about parents being more proactive with getting the best care for their children.
Simple things like wiping the windowsill periodically, wet wiping the windowsill, wiping the toys periodically.
Keep children away from peeling paint and renovation work. Wash toys, pacifiers, and other items children put in their mouths. Wash children's hands often, especially before they eat. Pay particular attention to windows, doors, and floors. All surfaces subject to wear and tear, friction, and impact create lead dust.
I always clean around my children. I always disinfect the house.
If you're a tenant and you're having a problem in your apartment with peeling paint, the first thing you want to do is speak with your landlord.
You're entitled to a safe environment for you and your children.
I'm Sean Donovan, Commissioner of the New York City Department of Housing Preservation and Development. I hope that you found the information in this video useful. Remember that if you have a young child and you are a tenant in an older apartment building, you need to be aware of the condition of paint in your home. If the paint is peeling or deteriorated, let the owner of your building know about it. If the condition is not corrected promptly, call 311 and register a complaint. And if an inspection is scheduled by HPD, be sure that someone is home to let the inspectors in. In addition, if other repairs are being done that disturb painted surfaces, the work should be performed safely to prevent exposure to lead paint dust and should be followed by a thorough cleaning and dust sampling. Finally, if you would like more information on New York City's lead paint poisoning prevention law, visit HPD's website at www.nyc.gov/HPD or contact HPD's Housing Education Program to attend a class. The more you know, the better you can protect your family.
Just call 311 and ask for HPD, and they'll send some help out. So let's make it, let's safe.